3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello guys, what is up and welcome back to the Sports Shift with me, Ian Marquez. Another game week is upon us. The action is continuing to come thick and fast. Every matchup counts so much more now as teams fight for survival, fight for Champions League, and of course, fight for the title. So let's get into it. Here are our fixtures for game week 26. Once more, starting off on Friday evening. Leicester welcome Brentford to the Midlands. Then kicking off Saturday's games, Everton host Manchester United. London Derby, Arsenal host West Ham. Bournemouth welcome Wolves to the South Coast. Then we have another London Derby with Fulham hosting Crystal Palace. Spurs travel to Portsmouth Road to play Ipswich. Brighton stay on the coast as they head to Southampton. Aston Villa welcome Chelsea, and two huge games on Sunday. Newcastle hosting Nottingham Forest, a huge game for the Champions League race. Continuing that on Super Sunday, Manchester City hosting Liverpool. This game has been immense over the years, and although Man City are struggling, I still think this game will be end-to-end action. Here are my predictions. I have Brentford overcoming Leicester. Leicester just in struggling form, struggling to score goals, struggling to keep them out of the other end. Brentford do have quite an abundance of quality, likes of Brian Mbeumo, Yohan Wissa, Kevin Schad. That front line is full of pace and is usually pretty clinical. So I expect them to defend strong and take their chances when they come. And then Wissa had a few disallowed goals in the last week. My only issue here is Brentford are away from home, and we know that their form and consistency away from home is way different to that when they're at home. So that does work in Leicester's favour, but I do think Brentford have enough to overcome them. Continuing the first game of the Saturday games. The first game of the Saturday schedule, Everton welcome Man United. And the Merseyside team has been in great form under David Moyes, scoring goals, keeping teams out. A huge dramatic equaliser against Liverpool. I think they're able to hold Man United to a draw, if not win. I think it's a little bit of bias that I didn't put Man United to lose, but I do think Man United can score. However, I don't think Man United keep a clean sheet, and I'm looking at a 1-1 draw. I think Everton scored first, so that 1-1 draw could easily turn into a 2-0 win for Everton. I'm not sure, but I'm going to lean towards a draw for Man United. Their injury woes continue. They can barely field 11 fit senior players. Xerxes and Højlund are leading the line up top, with Garnacho slightly behind, and all three of them have not been convincing of late. Garnacho unable to score since Van Nistelrooy was in charge of United. Missing a huge chance against Spurs last week. Højlund and Xerxes no one claiming that number 9 spot. So a lot of questions are being asked about Man United, and there are no answers right now. Amorim has been very clear and honest about that. United are going to have to suffer. I mean, they've put themselves in this mess with their recruitment, their wage structure, and it just can't continue. So the only way to stop that is you have to suffer for a little bit and wait it out, because no teams are going to buy players on such high wages. Any team United try to buy, due to their current situation, they're going to demand high wages as well. So it's a very difficult process. Hopefully they wait it out and do the right thing. But in terms of this game, the only good news is that they have Ugarte back. Aside from that, it doesn't look great. I think it's going to be a very boring, very cagey game. And I definitely don't see Man United winning. Hopefully I'm wrong. Continuing our Saturday games, Arsenal against West Ham. Arsenal are another team full of injury concerns. No clear striker, barely any forwards, relying on Trossard, maybe Sterling, and Nwaneri to lead the line. That doesn't sound too convincing. I know Mikel Merino came off the bench in the previous game, but I'm not too convinced that he can be their solution at striker. They're playing Leicester, one of the weakest teams in the league, and as soon as they get to better opposition, I don't think that can continue. Yes, they're good at corners, but even some of the people that take the corners, such as Saka and Odegaard, are hurt. So a lot of questions to be asked for Arsenal. When Liverpool step up, they need to be there, waiting, jumping on those loose points and closing the gap. I'm not sure if they can go on a run enough to chase down Liverpool, but we'll see. Meanwhile, West Ham under Graham Potter, they have looked slightly better, still pretty inconsistent in terms of goals, not able to keep a clean sheet, and I do think they'll be safe from relegation, of course, but I don't see them overcoming Arsenal in this game. Continuing on, Bournemouth hosting Wolves. Bournemouth have been in fine form. They were very unlucky against Liverpool, hitting the post, Kluivert missing an open goal, but when you're playing against good teams and you don't take your chances, this is what will happen. So, looking to get back to winning ways, I think they have way too much quality to overcome Wolves. They did have a pretty satisfying win against Southampton last week, and I think they continue that form in their chase for European football. Fulham against Crystal Palace. This game I do think can go either way. It definitely can draw, and either team can win as well. I went for Fulham because they're at home. I do think they have slightly more quality, but we never know which Fulham is going to turn up. Is it the Fulham that beats Newcastle, or is it the Fulham that loses to Manchester United? You know, I lean for the win just because they're at home, and Crystal Palace also have been pretty inconsistent. I definitely don't think either team keeps a clean sheet, so maybe betting on both teams to score is a much safer bet. Ipswich versus Spurs. This is the only other game where I went for a draw. Ipswich got the win in the reverse leg. They played amazing football. Ipswich do tend to play a lot better away from home, so that definitely does work in Spurs' favour. But we never know which Spurs we're going to get. They had a hard-fought win against Manchester United, but that's Man United. That's not anything to praise about. They lose every week. So what kind of Spurs are they going to get? I do think both teams score in this one as well, and definitely wouldn't be surprised if either team wins it, but I'm going for a draw. Probably a high scoring draw. I'd say like 1-1, maybe 2-0. Southampton at home to Brighton. Brighton have finally seemed to found the form that we have expected of them. A very impressive win against Chelsea once again. That's 2 wins against Chelsea over the last week, one in the FA Cup and one more in the Premier League. Mitoma has found his shooting boots. He had scored an amazing goal at first and second touch. Delightful, the finish exquisite. But the likes of Adingra, who was almost very unlucky not to get a hat-trick, along with Mitoma and whoever is leading that line. You know, Bournemouth play very exciting football, and I think Southampton will encourage it. Wouldn't be surprised if Southampton scored, but I do think Brighton win comfortably. The big game is to finish off the weekend. Aston Villa at home to Chelsea. Huge game with Champions League ramifications, as is the one that follows, but we'll focus on this one for now. Aston Villa with a well-deserved point against Liverpool. Ollie Watkins is in fine form. The supporting cast that arrived in January, like Sir Marcos Asensio, Marcus Rashford, Daniel Malin. Then they also have ever-present Morgan Rogers, Leon Bailey. So many different ways that they can hurt you. Their midfield fights does a lot of running. Jacob Ramsey, John McGinn, Yuri Tillmans. And I just think they have slightly too much quality, and they'll cover more ground than Chelsea. They'll work harder. Not really too sure what Chelsea we're getting these days, so I went with Aston Villa. If Chelsea, the Chelsea that we know that plays amazing football, turns up, very possible they can win. But right now, where are the goals coming from? Palmer always seems to be out of the game. He doesn't really get many chances. Chelsea haven't been winning penalties, so I'm not even sure where Palmer's goals come from. But I'm going with Aston Villa in this one, the home team, fresh off of a hard-fought point against Liverpool, and I think their good form continues. Meanwhile, Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. Newcastle have had a slight dip in recent weeks. They are in a cup final. They are still in the FA Cup. They are in a firm position to play Champions League football next season. They're having a great season by all means. And I do think they are back to winning ways against Nottingham Forest. Although Nottingham Forest are in such a great position, their football tends to go against their data. They often have a very low XG in terms of the chances they create. However, they're usually pretty clinical. That is embodied in Chris Wood. He gets one shot, he will score. The results haven't been related in that way. Like, although they're in a good position, they have been a bit faulty. So I do think Newcastle edge it at home They have slightly more quality, and they won't give away foolish chances. Finally, Super Sunday game of the week. Manchester City welcoming Liverpool to Manchester. This game is going to be endless action. Man City bowed out of the Champions League in a pretty embarrassing fashion. They put up no fight, and I think Liverpool just have too much quality in this one, but by no means will it be easy. I expect to see a 3-2 or a 3-1, maybe even 4, but I expect a lot of goals. I expect City to put up way more fight than they did over the weekend. City don't really have much to offer in terms of defense. They're missing their renowned Ballon d'Or winning number 6 in Rodri, and the right back Husanov. He has potential, but he's not ready yet. Real Madrid had a feast. The likes of Vinicius, Mbappe, Bellingham, Rodrigo all took their turn running at the right back, and it was a very, very long day in Spain for him. I think even though he's back at home, his troubles continue. Whether it's likes of Luis Diaz or Jota, maybe even Gakpo gets a little bit of action off the bench. I think he has a long day, as do most of the City players. That midfield of Liverpool, probably the best in the Premier League, even better than the likes of Newcastle and Aston Villa. Szoboszlai has been in fine form. Gravenberch, best 6 in the league, possibly in the world this season. McAllister, so technical, very underrated, and they just have way too much legs to cover way more ground than Man City, so I think that's where Man City lose the game. The likes of De Bruyne, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, all expected to leave the club this summer, and I think it's going to take some individual brilliance, maybe a long ball in order to get anything, and they definitely will be relying heavily on Marmoush for a little bit of individual brilliance to create any chances. Sounds like another Manchester team, I know, but I do think they'll put up a little bit more fight, and I don't think it will be as straightforward as most expect. The only certainty is to expect Mo Salah to get on the score sheet, probably from the penalty spot. So here are the Premier League matchups in terms of goal projections and clean sheet odds. Shout out to Rob T FPL on Twitter. That's also some great stats, great data. Looking at it, we do see Bournemouth, Arsenal, Spurs, and Brighton all expected to score 2 goals. Liverpool and Newcastle just below it. So all those teams are expected to be high in the goals. Even Brentford on Friday. However, Arsenal have the highest by far clean sheet percentage. That's due to their opposition and a combination of their defense. West Ham very unlikely to score. Usually it takes a little bit of individual brilliance from the likes of Mohamed Kudus or Jared Bowen, Lucas Paqueta, the likes of those. But Arsenal are very solid defensively, and I do think that will be a low scoring game. I think Arsenal barely edge it. Continuing in terms of clean sheet percentage, believe it or not, Everton have a higher chance of keeping a clean sheet than Man United. No surprise there. Bournemouth also have a very high percentage against Wolves, which is pretty surprising because Bournemouth don't typically keep a clean sheet. Their way of defending is to keep the ball. When the other team has the ball, they do typically get chances. Utilizing this data, we can look at the teams that have a high chance of scoring, and if their opposition has a low chance of a clean sheet, we can kind of consolidate this data to decide who has the best chance of scoring. So looking at the individual goal scorers now, João Pedro is at the top. I know that's very surprising, but that is off of projected starts. So if he does not start, we can ignore João Pedro, but if he does, he's definitely expected to score against Southampton. Operation Target Southampton. After João Pedro, we have the usual suspects: Mohamed Salah, Alexander Isak, Erling Haaland, Yohan Wissa, Heung-min Son, Bryan Mbeumo. I can keep going all day. These are the usual suspects. When a team has a high chance of scoring, it's obviously going to be their typical goal scorers. And that's the likes of Salah, Isak, Haaland. The issue is Haaland's probably not going to start. Whether he plays, I'm not sure, but he's coming off an injury, so I'd stay away from him. But the other ones are pretty much a safe bet. And if you look at the opposition, Salah against a very weak Man City defense. Isaac, Forest have been conceding goals. I know they play a very cagey, rough football, but they do like to concede. And Isaac has been in fine form, and he is due a goal. And then the Brentford boys against Leicester, Son against Ipswich, and it continues down the line. So, utilizing all of this data, it's time for me to make some picks. So in the goals, I have Yohan Wissa and Mohamed Salah. Salah did score last week. Wissa was unable, although he found the net twice. Both goals were disallowed, no fault to him. He did his job, he finished it. He keeps getting chances, and I think he definitely comes good with 1, maybe 2 goals this week. Mohamed Salah is Salah. We don't need to talk about him that much. He shows up in big games, small games. He will score every week. Definitely expect Liverpool to get a penalty this week, so look out for that. Going to the long shot, well, we have Justin Kluivert. Bournemouth are playing Wolves. They've been in fine form. They create a lot of chances, and Kluivert's on penalties. He's gotten 3 penalties in 1 game before, so 1 penalty isn't too much for Ashford these days. Moving on to the yellow cards, Manuel Ugarte is back in action. Surprise injury last week, I thought he would be available, but he's back. And who are they playing? They're playing Everton. Idrissa Gueye. Both midfields are going to be cagey, stopping counter attacks. That's what both teams have to play. I definitely expect both of these players to be involved in the fouls. And depending on the referee, I wouldn't be too surprised if many yellow cards are shown. You know, Ashley Young loves the yellow card, but I don't expect him to start. Carlos Baleba, also ever present when it comes to fouls and getting yellow cards. I think you know where I go. I usually go wing backs or midfielder. They're usually the most common players to get a yellow card. Even though Brighton are playing Southampton, you never count out Baleba. Southampton will obviously be playing on the counter. He also tends to lose the ball in some dangerous situations sometimes. So just to cut out any opportunities, I definitely can see him taking a cynical foul. When it comes to the full-time results, I have Arsenal against West Ham, Bournemouth against Wolves, and Brentford against Leicester. 3 quality teams that are playing against relegation-threatened opponents. So I'm definitely not surprised if all 3 teams come away with 3 points. That's definitely expected. And on the other side, we have Liverpool trying to maintain their gap to Arsenal. The reason they're not shot is because they are playing Man City. I know they've been struggling in form. They are missing quite a few players, but they're still Man City and they're still capable of anything. Even though it's against Liverpool, Liverpool did look a bit leggy and tired in the game against Aston Villa. So it's by no means a formality, but I am still pretty confident. So those are my picks. Let me know if you agree, if you're riding with me, or if you're going to fade me. Let me know in the comments. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel. Otherwise, enjoy this weekend's action and see you guys later.